It started with a simple nod. Joy Reid leaned in, eyes locked on Jasmine Crockett across the MSNBC studio. The segment had been planned as a policy deep dive. Instead, it became a televised reckoning. "Say it plain," Joy urged, her voice calm but electric. "And Jasmine?" She didn't hesitate. "The GOP doesn't just bend the truth," Jasmine said, straightening in her chair, her tone sharpened like a blade. "They manufacture it, daily, for power, for chaos, for control." Joy raised her brows, letting Jasmine drive the segment into uncharted territory. Behind the cameras, producers froze. They knew this wasn't just another interview, it was becoming the moment. "They scream about crime," Jasmine continued, "but stay silent when their donors fund private prisons. They preach family values, while voting against child nutrition programs. That's not a contradiction. That's a strategy." Joy let out a quiet "MHM," but her eyes were wide. "Keep going," she whispered. Jasmine leaned forward. "You want to talk about border chaos? How about when Republican reps visit the border, take photos, then vote against immigration reform the next week?" The audience watching at home couldn't look away. Twitter ignited. Hashtags exploded. "This isn't ignorance," Jasmine said. "It's intent. Calculated, rehearsed, weaponized." Joy finally cut in, but only to ask, "And what should the American people do with that truth?" Jasmine didn't miss a beat. "Remember it. Vote with it. Repeat it." Joy turned to the camera, speechless for once. She didn't need to say more, Jasmine had done that for both of them. The clip of Jasmine Crockett's takedown hit 4 million views in 8 hours. The comments? A firestorm. Some hailed her as a modern-day truth-teller. Others, mostly right-wing pundits, scrambled to dismiss it as performance politics. But Jasmine didn't flinch. She never does. The morning after the interview, she walked into Congress with the same fierce stride, shoulders squared, eyes forward. Joy Reid's question was still echoing in her mind: what should the American people do with that truth? Jasmine knew exactly what came next. Behind closed doors, House Republicans were furious. One aide was overheard muttering, "She made us look like fools," on national television. But Jasmine wasn't just aiming for embarrassment. She was going after the machine itself. Later that day, Jasmine held a press conference. No fluff. No filters. Just her, a mic, and a stack of papers. "Here are the bills they blocked," she said, raising her voice over the chatter. "Gun reform. Voting rights. Lower prescription drug costs." Every time, every single time, they chose the donor over the voter. Reporters leaned in. "And what about the GOP's response to your MSNBC appearance?" someone asked. Jasmine smirked. "You mean the silence? Or the spin?" She held up a screenshot of a GOP tweet accusing her of dividing the nation. "Funny," she said. "When I quote their voting records, it's division. But when they lie on the floor of Congress, it's called policy?" The room went quiet. That's the thing about Jasmine Crockett. She doesn't just clap back, she brings receipts. And now, the country wasn't just watching. It was listening. The footage rolled on primetime. Joy Reid, leaning in, asked Jasmine, "Congresswoman, what do you say to the millions who feel gaslit, who hear one thing from Republicans, then watch them vote the opposite way every single time?" Jasmine didn't blink. "I say, stop watching what they say, and start watching what they do," she replied. "They'll hug your grandma at a town hall and vote to slash her Medicare the next day. That's not policy. That's deception in a suit." The audience went silent. Then Joy asked the question that cracked it all open. "Say it plain, what's the GOP really afraid of?" Jasmine leaned forward. "They're terrified the American people might wake up. Because if folks ever connected the dots, between the lies, the laws, and the lobbyists, the whole game falls apart." And just like that, it wasn't just an interview. It became a rallying cry. The next morning, hashtags like hashtag Crockett Truth and hashtag Say It Plain trended nationwide. Conservatives lashed out, claiming she disrespected decorum. But Jasmine doubled down. She released a Twitter thread detailing every Republican no vote on legislation tied to health, housing, and civil rights, with links. "Here's what they don't want you to see," she captioned it. Backstage, Joy Reid texted her, "They're scrambling. You shook something." Jasmine replied with one line, "Good. Let it burn." In just 48 hours, Jasmine had turned a cable news segment into a national reckoning, and she wasn't finished. The backlash was instant. Fox News ran 4 segments in 12 hours. One anchor called Jasmine unhinged. Another said she was divisive. A third simply played her clip and sighed into the camera, "This is today's Democratic Party. Jasmine?" She didn't flinch. Instead, she walked into the Capitol that morning in a navy blue suit with "Facts Don't Flinch" pinned to her lapel. Reporters swarmed. One asked if she regretted anything she said on Joy Reid's show. Jasmine smiled. "Only that I didn't say it sooner." Meanwhile, Joy Reid brought her back on air that evening. "You've stirred up something, Congresswoman," Joy began. "They're angry. They're exposed," Jasmine replied calmly. "And when you strip away the slogans, all they've got left is noise." Then she dropped the file. A 38-page folder. On live television. Inside, a timeline of Republican-led bills that cut veteran housing, public education, maternal health care. Votes. Roll calls. Quotes. Not speculation, receipts. And Jasmine read them. One of them stood at a rally last month and said, "We're the party of working Americans." That same week, he voted against capping insulin at $35. Joy blinked. "You brought documentation." Jasmine didn't blink. "I brought the truth." That night, she wasn't just a guest. She became a symbol, for everyone tired of the gaslighting, the games, the polished lies wrapped in red, white, and blue. The clip went viral. Millions watched as one Congresswoman didn't yell, didn't curse, she just read the receipts. And suddenly, the GOP didn't just have a PR problem. They had a Jasmine Crockett problem. The following morning, Capitol Hill buzzed, not with policy talk, but damage control. Inside GOP war rooms, aides scrolled through Jasmine's viral segment like it was a national security threat. Screenshots of her spreadsheet, highlighted votes, bold-faced names, circulated faster than campaign ads. Jasmine hadn't just spoken, she'd surgically dismantled the myth of Republican benevolence. One senator snapped at his comms team, "Why didn't we respond faster?" Because there was no comeback. Meanwhile, Jasmine walked through the halls of Congress with her head held high, headphones in, ignoring the cold stares from the other side of the aisle. But when a Republican congressman muttered under his breath, "Enjoy your 15 minutes, she paused. Removed one earbud. Turned slightly. 15 minutes is all it takes, when you're telling the truth. Later that day, Joy Reid called. "You good?" she asked. Jasmine laughed. "I'm ready." And they planned round 2. This time, it wasn't just Jasmine reading receipts. It was voters. Teachers calling in to verify the education cuts. Veterans emailing producers. A nurse showed up in studio holding up her hospital's budget freeze letter, and the name of the senator who voted for it. The GOP tried to pivot. They accused Jasmine of political theatrics. But Americans weren't buying it. Because Jasmine never raised her voice. She never made it personal. She made it undeniable. The readout ratings skyrocketed. Hashtags evolved from hashtag Say It Plain to hashtag Crockett Effect. Think pieces flooded the media, the rise of a reluctant truth-teller. And still, Jasmine said nothing flashy. Just this. If telling the truth breaks your party, maybe it was never that strong to begin with. Jasmine Crockett walked into MSNBC like she owned the place, not with ego, but with evidence. The folder in her hand was thick, dog-eared, and color-coded like a case file ready for trial. Joy Reid looked up from her desk, raised an eyebrow. "That looks heavier than last time." "They gave me more lies to work with," Jasmine replied flatly. Cameras rolled. Lights came on. And the second segment began. Joy opened with, "There's been backlash, calls, threats, the usual noise. Do you regret going as hard as you did?" Jasmine leaned forward. "What I regret is that it took this long for people to listen." She pulled out a sheet. "Here's Representative Wallace voting no on housing subsidies, then tweeting about homelessness the same week. Here's Senator McLaren shutting down a climate bill, then posting beach selfies while half his state is underwater." The hypocrisy wasn't subtle. It was scripted. Joy tried to hide her grin. "You've been busy." "They keep handing me the matches," Jasmine said. "All I do is strike them." Then she dropped a bomb. A GOP internal memo, leaked. Jasmine read it out loud, word for word. It was cold. Strategic. "Let them fight on social issues, it distracts from the money." Joy's smile vanished. The room shifted. "You think that's what they're doing?" Jasmine nodded slowly. "I think they're gambling with people's lives for votes. And I think it's time they got called on it." Social media caught fire. Clips of Jasmine saying, "They don't govern. They perform," looped everywhere. News anchors replayed the leaked memo like it was a confession tape. She didn't need to yell. She didn't need theatrics. Truth, spoken clearly, cut deeper than any headline. And when Joy asked her, "What do you want the American people to remember?" Jasmine said, "That I didn't flinch. And neither should they." Backstage, producers scrambled. Phones buzzed. Screens lit up with tweets, clips, and cable news alerts. Jasmine Crockett had turned a standard interview into a viral eruption. Again. Joy Reid, sipping from a mug now forgotten on the table, leaned in. "You just detonated a week's worth of talking points." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "Then let them rebuild, this time with the truth." Suddenly, the control room cut in. A GOP strategist was demanding airtime for balance. Joy's team asked Jasmine if she'd stay for a live panel. She didn't hesitate. "I'm not leaving the room just because it gets uncomfortable." Within minutes, Jasmine was seated across from Richard Langston, conservative, polished, and visibly tense. Joy introduced the segment. "We're now joined by Congressman Crockett and strategist Langston. Let's get right to it. Jasmine, you've said the GOP is selling theater instead of policy. Do you stand by that?" Jasmine didn't blink. "I don't just stand by it, I can prove it." She held up the memo again. "This isn't analysis. This is instruction. It tells their members to push fear over facts. To use division as a distraction. That's not governing. That's gaslighting." Langston scoffed. "That's your interpretation." Jasmine turned to him, calm but surgical. "Then explain this line, inflame cultural anxieties, avoid economic detail." "What part of that is my interpretation, sir?" he stammered. Joy stayed silent. "Because while you're stoking outrage over books in libraries," Jasmine continued, "people can't afford rent, insulin, or a basic education." Langston tried to pivot. "Democrats have their own issues." "I'm sure they do," Jasmine interrupted. "But tonight, we're talking about yours." A split screen froze on his face. The silence said everything. That night, hashtags trended. Hashtag Crockett brought receipts. Hashtag GOP memo exposed. Hashtag say it plain. And once again, Jasmine didn't yell. She didn't posture. She just dismantled the spin, one fact at a time. The next morning, Jasmine Crockett woke up to headlines that didn't mince words. Crockett torches GOP playbook on live TV. Receipts, not rhetoric, how Jasmine changed the conversation. Joy let her speak. Jasmine spoke truth. But what hit harder was the flood of messages. Not from pundits, but from people. A mother in Mississippi. Thank you. My son saw someone who looked like him tell the truth without fear. A laid-off worker in Ohio. That memo? That's what they've been doing to us. You made it make sense. A teacher in Texas. They call me divisive for teaching history. Now I know who wrote that script. Jasmine sat in her living room, phone glowing, coffee going cold. The weight of their words settled in. She wasn't just fighting politics. She was fighting the erosion of truth. Later that day, Joy Reid called her again. They're sending spin doctors all over the networks. You broke their rhythm. Jasmine chuckled. Good. Let them try to dance to truth. But it wasn't over. That night, the GOP held a press conference. Senator Albright stood at the podium, defensive and rehearsed. There is no official memo strategy. These accusations are irresponsible and unfounded. Jasmine watched from the green room of another studio. She turned to the producer beside her. Want me to read page 2? He grinned. We're live in 60. When the cameras rolled again, she didn't just read it, she explained how those words became policy. How they seeded division. How cultural panic had replaced problem solving. Let me be clear, she said. This isn't about partisanship. It's about power being used to poison the public. By the time she finished, her voice steady and unapologetic, the panel was speechless. And America, watching, was anything but. CNN picked it up. MSNBC replayed it. Even Fox News couldn't ignore it, though they cut the segment short and framed it as aggressive rhetoric from the radical left. But something had shifted. In a dimly lit committee room 2 days later, Jasmine Crockett walked in with that same manila folder, only now, it had tabs, highlights, and a post-it that simply read. They can't run from this. Across the aisle sat Representative Matthews, a loyal mouthpiece for the party line. He leaned back, smirking, as she opened the folder. We've been told this memo was fake, Jasmine said, voice clear but laced with steel. But here's the version emailed from the NRCC to 23 Republican representatives. And here's the internal note confirming receipt. The room shifted. Chairs straightened. Phones came out. Matthews rolled his eyes. So now it's a crime to communicate strategy? Jasmine didn't look up. It's not a crime to strategize. It's a crime to knowingly manipulate the public with disinformation campaigns while ignoring their real needs. It's a betrayal of the oath. He shot back, louder now, we represent the people. Jasmine finally looked up. Then why do you spend more time banning books than feeding kids? Silence. You say you stand for parents, she continued, but you're gutting public education. You say you're protecting families, but you block healthcare and raise prescription costs. You say you're patriots, but your playbook reads like a blueprint for division. Matthews tried to interrupt. She raised a hand. Don't lecture me on civility when your own documents tell your party to exploit fear for votes. One by one, reporters left their phones off silent. Screens lit up. Live tweets flew. Crockett brings the memo to Congress. Names. Shows dates. This isn't politics. This is exposure. As Jasmine left the hearing room, someone asked if she feared retaliation. She smiled. Retaliation means they felt it. And from the look on their faces, they did. 3 days after the storm Jasmine Crockett unleashed, Joy Reid opened her show with one line. America just watched a congresswoman do what few dare. She read their game plan out loud. Cut to Jasmine on the screen, calm, composed, and fearless. She didn't gloat. She didn't dance on the ashes. She just told the truth, and let the truth do the burning. Backstage, Joy met her with a warm embrace. You didn't just speak for a party. You spoke for a generation that's tired of the lies. Jasmine nodded. I didn't come here to be liked. I came here to be clear. The moment went viral, again. And not just because it was fiery. But because it was rare. Rare to see someone call the play while the game was still on. Rare to watch someone turn a smear campaign into a national reckoning. In the days that followed, lawmakers scrambled. Some denied ever receiving the memo. Others tried to pivot. But the public wasn't buying it. A student rally in Georgia held up signs. Fear is not a platform. Read the memo. Then read the room. Jasmine said it plain. The GOP remained silent on the contents of the leak strategy guide. But the silence only amplified the sound of Jasmine's words echoing across the country. And Joy? She had Jasmine back one last time that week. Final thought, Congresswoman, she asked. Jasmine looked directly into the camera. To every young person told to sit down and stay quiet. To every activist labeled radical for simply demanding clean water or fair maps. To every voter tired of hearing buzzwords instead of bold plans. They wrote a memo. We wrote this moment. And we're just getting started. The studio went silent. Then thundered with applause. Because Jasmine Crockett hadn't just delivered a speech, she had sparked a movement. They told her to sit down. She stood up. They handed her silence. She gave them truth. They built a wall of deception. Jasmine Crockett walked right through it with a folder full of receipts and a voice that cut like steel. This wasn't just a hearing. It wasn't just an interview. It was a reckoning. In a country tired of spin, Jasmine didn't sugarcoat. She didn't play nice. She exposed the blueprint. And in doing so, she didn't just shake the room. She shook the entire political machine. So the next time someone tells you, speak softer, or, wait your turn. Remember this moment. Because Jasmine Crockett didn't wait. She made the truth louder than the lie. And the nation heard it.